You know what's interesting, Arjun? Everything you've said so far makes these practices sound less like old traditions and more like daily habits that shape who you are.
And that's why these ancient principles, when understood properly, aren't outdated, they're timeless.
You know, Arjun, the more I think about it, the more I realize how much we've reduced belief to just thoughts and words.
Ever noticed how in the rush of deadlines, targets, and endless emails, we quietly ignore the one thing that could actually give our lives meaning? We'll fight for a pay rise, defend our work in a meeting, but stay silent when something far bigger than us is mocked or disrespected. And yet, that silence costs more than we realize. In this conversation, don't just listen, lean back. Shut off the noise and let this feel like you're sat with two mates at the office cafe, pulling apart the kind of truths you don't say out loud. Because what you'll hear today might just change the way you see courage, respect, and what it means to stand for something beyond yourself. By the end, you won't just understand these ancient devotional principles. You'll feel why ignoring them is the quiet mistake we can't afford to keep making.
You know, Arjun, I was thinking about that team meeting earlier, how everyone just sat there, biting their tongues when the client made that little joke about the project. It wasn't even funny. It was just undermining. And I realized I do that a lot. Hear something wrong, know it's wrong, but keep quiet. Feels easier that way.
Yeah, I get it. Office politics. Half the battle is keeping your head down and not rocking the boat. But you know, it's a dangerous habit. It doesn't just stay in work life. That same silence spills over into things that matter more than any job.
Like what?
Like when something sacred, something worth defending, is mocked or disrespected. Not just religion. It could be values, people, anything you genuinely hold dear. You stay quiet long enough, and it's not just your voice you lose, it's your own sense of what's worth standing for.
You're making it sound bigger than just an awkward joke in a meeting.
It is bigger. There's this principle in the Street Mob Bhagavatam. It says if you hear blasphemy against the Lord or his devotees, and you don't either challenge it, sacrifice for it, or walk away, you actually lose the benefits of all the good you've ever done.
Wait, hold on. Are you saying if I just sit there and do nothing, even if I've spent my life trying to be a decent person, it wipes all that out?
That's the weight of it. And it's not about some tally in the sky. It's about your inner alignment. Think about it. You can spend years building your integrity, but one moment of cowardice in the face of something truly wrong can make you doubt yourself forever.
That's uncomfortably relatable. But here's the thing. Isn't there a balance? Like, we can't go storming in to defend everything every time.
Absolutely, and that's where the subtlety comes in. The teaching isn't to be aggressive, it's to be effective. There are 3 ways to handle it. 1, if you got the skill, you speak up and defeat the argument with reason. 2, if you can't win the debate, you stand so firm that you'd risk your comfort, even your life for it. And 3, if you can't do either, you leave.
So basically, don't just sit there frozen.
Exactly, because doing nothing isn't neutral. It's silently agreeing.
But what about humility? Doesn't the whole devotional mindset promote being humble, turning the other cheek?
That's the interesting part. Lord Chaitanya, one of the most humble people in history, more tolerant than a tree as the saying goes, still wouldn't tolerate insults against the divine or his devotees. When it was about his own honor, he could let it slide. But when it was about someone else's honor or God's, he acted.
That's different from how people imagine spirituality. Usually it's all peace, no confrontation.
Yeah, but see, meekness in the face of injustice isn't a virtue. It's avoidance dressed up as humility. And that's the thing. People confuse not causing trouble with doing the right thing.
Right. Okay, but switching gears, you mentioned something once about those markings people wear, like tilaka and those bead necklaces. What's that actually about? It seems so specific and, I don't know, ceremonial?
Tilaka and tulasi beads aren't just ceremony. They're symbols. Think of them like a company badge, but not one you wear for branding. It's a declaration of identity, visible to the spiritual realm. The Padma Purana says that people who mark their body in 12 places with the symbols of Lord Vishnu, wear tulasi beads, and have tilaka on their forehead, they purify the space around them.
Purify? As in, make it feel calmer?
In a sense, yeah. But also literally protect it. In the Skanda Purana, it even says, such people are not approached by Yamadutas, the spiritual messengers who deal with punishing sinful acts. It's like having diplomatic immunity in the afterlife.
That's a bit intense. So it's almost like wearing a uniform that says, I'm not under that jurisdiction?
Exactly. And it's not superstition. The symbols are reminders, physical cues that keep you anchored in your values. Just like wearing your company's lanyard reminds you you're representing them at all times. Talaka and beads remind you you're representing something higher.
But what if someone just wears them for show?
Then it's just costume. The point is living in alignment with what they represent. But even so, the act of wearing them can start to shift the person. Kind of like how putting on your work clothes changes your posture and attitude.
I see. And what about the flower garlands? I've seen them in temples, but is that just decoration?
Far from it. In the Bhagavatam, Uddhava tells Krishna that wearing things he's used, like garlands, oils, clothes, actually shield you from material illusion. It's not just sentimentality. There's this idea that objects offered to God carry a spiritual charge.
So even if someone's not fully following all the practices, if they eat food that's been offered to Krishna or wear one of those garlands, it still has an effect.
Exactly. Even partial contact with those sacred things can slowly lift someone toward devotion. And in the Skanda Purana, it says wearing a garland Krishna is worn can actually relieve you from disease and past mistakes.
That's powerful and a lot more practical than I thought. It's not just for the super religious.
Exactly. These aren't just rituals for some distant priestly class. They're meant for everyday life, for people like you and me who have jobs, bills, and noisy commutes.
Okay, I get that. But this whole conversation is making me wonder, are we in our day-to-day lives actually walking past opportunities to connect with this stuff without realizing it?
All the time. Whether it's staying silent when something sacred is mocked, or shrugging off symbols that could keep us anchored, we've normalized spiritual neglect. And the cost is that when life really shakes us, we've got nothing solid to stand on.
That's uncomfortably true.
Which is why these principles matter now more than ever. It's not about some distant afterlife. It's about who you become today, in the middle of this corporate chaos, when you choose to stand, act, and remember what you represent.
You know what's interesting, Arjun? Everything you've said so far makes these practices sound less like old traditions and more like daily habits that shape who you are.
That's the thing. They were always meant to be lived, not just performed. Even something as simple as dancing before the deity, it's not just for ceremony. It's about allowing yourself to feel joy and reverence so deeply that your body moves without inhibition.
Dancing? You're gonna have to explain that one. I can't imagine myself dancing in a temple without feeling awkward.
That's because we've been conditioned to think dancing's only for weddings or clubs. But in the Dvaraka Mahatmya, Krishna says when someone dances before him with genuine devotional ecstasy, it burns away thousands of years of stored-up mistakes.
Thousands of years? That's a bold claim.
It is, but think about it symbolically too. How often in our lives do we actually allow ourselves to express unfiltered gratitude or joy? We're so used to editing ourselves, in meetings, in public, even at home sometimes. Dancing in devotion breaks that control. It's a full surrender of pride.
So it's less about the dance moves and more about letting go?
Exactly. And it's the same with clapping before the deity. Narada says clapping in joy can make all the birds of sinful activity fly away, like scaring pigeons off a roof. You're physically shaking off the layers of heaviness you've carried.
I like that metaphor. But what about bowing? That seems more straightforward. It's a sign of respect.
Yes, but the Narada Purana takes it further. It says someone who's performed huge, expensive sacrifices and someone who's simply bowed before the deity are not equals. The bowing person actually wins in the long run.
How so?
Because sacrifices, no matter how grand, eventually run out of effect. But bowing, that humble surrender, puts you in a position where you don't come back to this cycle of struggle at all. You go straight to Krishna's abode.
So basically, you can spend your whole life trying to earn your way with big gestures, or you can take one sincere act of humility that changes everything.
Exactly. And that's why I think these practices aren't about scale or show, they're about sincerity.
And what's that one about standing up to receive the Lord? That sounds almost like the office tradition of standing when a senior leader walks in.
Funny you say that. It's very similar. The Brahmanda Purana says if you see the Lord's Ratha Yatra chariot festival and stand to receive him, it purges all your sins. It's a physical act that mirrors an inner readiness.
So standing up is more than just politeness. It's an acknowledgement.
Exactly. It says, I recognize who's before me, and I'm ready to honor that. And in spiritual terms, that recognition transforms you.
You're making me see a pattern here. Whether it's bowing, standing, dancing, or clapping, it's all physical movement tied to an internal posture.
Spot on. And the final one is following the deity. In the Bhavishya Purana, it says, even if you're born into a lowly background, if you follow the Ratha Yatra chariot as it passes, from front or behind, you're elevated to a position equal to Vishnu in opulence.
Equal to Vishnu? That's massive.
It is. And again, it's symbolic and literal. Symbolic because following the deity means aligning your life to a higher path. Literal because in that act, you physically place yourself in step with divinity.
So it's not just a parade, it's a declaration. I'm with you.
Exactly. It's as simple and that profound.
You know, all this makes me realize how disconnected we've become from physical expressions of belief. Even in corporate life, we use gestures to communicate. Handshakes, standing up, leaning forward in a meeting. But spiritually, we often try to keep everything in our head.
And that's why we feel ungrounded. Physical acts reinforce mental states. If you want reverence, bow. If you want joy, dance. If you want to affirm alignment, follow.
It's funny, in work, we understand the importance of showing up physically for things. No one says, I'll just think about attending the client presentation. You have to be there.
Exactly. And devotion's no different. You can't just think respect, you have to show it.
But here's what I'm wrestling with, Arjun. In modern life, especially here in the UK, where religion's often a private thing, wouldn't doing these acts openly feel uncomfortable? Like people would think you're showing off or being weird.
Oh, definitely. And that's why it's even more valuable. If you can still honor what's sacred to you, despite the risk of looking odd, you've broken through one of the biggest traps of modern life, the need for social approval.
So the discomfort is part of the transformation.
Absolutely. If these acts didn't challenge your ego, they wouldn't change you.
You know what's interesting? This all started with you talking about speaking up when something is mocked. And now I see it's the same root issue, courage. Whether it's defending your values in a conversation or bowing in a public space, it's about not letting fear dictate your actions.
That's the golden thread. Courage and devotion isn't about picking fights. It's about refusing to let the sacred be treated as disposable.
And that actually makes me think, if I were to put just one of these into practice in my own life, maybe it would shift more than I expect.
Exactly. You don't need to adopt them all overnight. Pick one. Wear a small tilaka mark, stand during a festival, take prasada food when offered. Just one act can start a chain reaction.
I can see how, and honestly, I think I've underestimated how much the little physical things matter in anchoring you.
Most people do. We think change happens in the mind, but it's the body that keeps the mind in place.
That's a bit of a mic drop line.
Well, it's true. And that's why these ancient principles, when understood properly, aren't outdated. They're timeless.
You know, Arjun, the more I think about it, the more I realize how much we've reduced belief to just thoughts and words. We almost never embody it.
That's one of the big shifts modern life's done to us. In the corporate world, we're taught to manage perception, say the right things, keep emotions under wraps, avoid actions that might look out of place. That mindset bleeds into everything, including spirituality.
Right. It's like, in work, you can believe in a project all you want, but unless you actually deliver something, it means nothing. Yet with our values, we somehow think just believing is enough.
Exactly. And that's why these devotional principles aren't just rituals, they're tools. They force you to step out of your head and into a physical declaration of what you stand for.
I suppose that's what the blasphemy principle was about too. It's not about policing everyone's speech. It's about refusing to quietly agree when something sacred's mocked.
Yes, because silence in that moment isn't neutrality, it's surrender. And if you surrender on what matters most, you chip away at your own integrity.
But here's the thing, Arjun. I keep coming back to the risk. In the office, in social circles, taking a stand could cost you.
True, but think about the cost of not taking a stand. Over time, you stop recognizing yourself. You become the sort of person who looks away every time it's inconvenient to care. And eventually, there's nothing you'd stand up for at all.
That's a bit frightening, because I can see how easily that could happen.
It's already happening everywhere. People don't notice until there's a big moment, and by then, they realize they've trained themselves into inaction.
And the practices, tilaka, tulasi beads, garlands, they're all small, regular ways of training yourself in the opposite direction.
Exactly. They're daily reminders, I belong to something higher. My identity isn't just my job title or my LinkedIn profile. That's why in the scriptures it says that even wearing a garland offered to Krishna can shift your entire trajectory. It's less about the garland itself and more about the fact you chose to align with something sacred.
And the physical acts, bowing, standing, dancing, clapping, those are like micro moments of courage.
Spot on. Courage is a muscle. If you practice it in safe, sacred settings, you're more likely to have it in the hard, unpredictable ones.
I guess it's similar to how in work we rehearse presentations before the big meeting.
Exactly. These devotional acts are rehearsals for life's moral tests.
You know what's ironic? People in the UK will queue for hours in the rain to see a celebrity, stand when they walk past, and proudly wear merch with their name on it. But when it comes to the divine or even their own deepest values, they'll hide it to avoid a raised eyebrow.
And that's the core issue. Misplaced reverence. We've learned to give public honor to things that entertain us, but treat what's eternal as something to be whispered about in private.
So the transformation you're talking about is almost a reversal, bringing the sacred back into the public, not as a performance, but as a natural part of life.
Yes, and that's why this conversation matters. These aren't just old temple traditions, they're training grounds for courage, identity, and consistency.
But let me challenge you here. Do you think someone who's not religious at all could still get something out of these principles?
Absolutely. Look, strip away the theology for a moment. What do you have? Standing up for what you believe in, wearing visible reminders of your values, taking physical action to honor something you respect, practicing joy without self-consciousness, bowing in humility, following someone or something you truly admire. That's universally human.
So even if they don't see it as devotion to Krishna, they could still treat it as devotion to integrity or to truth or to whatever principle they live by.
Exactly. But here's the beauty. Even if you start from a purely personal development angle, the act of aligning with something beyond yourself often leads you to the spiritual anyway.
Almost like the acts themselves are a doorway.
Yes, and most people don't even realize they're missing that doorway. They think life's just about doing well, hitting KPIs, paying bills, having a bit of fun on weekends. But there's this whole dimension of depth and clarity they've never touched because they've never stepped into those practices.
So the fear here isn't just about missing out on some religious brownie points. It's missing out on becoming the kind of person who can face life with courage and clarity.
Exactly. The real loss is who you could have become.
That lands hard.
Good, because it's meant to. We spend so much time protecting our comfort zones, but comfort zones never produce courage. These principles push you, even in small ways, to step into discomfort for something meaningful.
And I suppose that's why even Lord Chaitanya, who was known for his humility, couldn't stay silent when his devotee was attacked.
Yes. His example tells us humility doesn't mean passivity. You can be gentle in personal matters and fierce in defending what matters beyond you.
That actually gives me a lot to think about. I can see now that doing nothing in those moments isn't being peaceful, it's just being absent.
And absence in the moments that count is the quickest way to make your life feel hollow.
So, what would you say to someone who's listening to this and thinking, I'm too far gone, I've stayed silent too many times, I've never done any of these practices, it's too late for me?
I tell them that the whole point of these principles is that you can start now. Wear the garland. Bow once. Take prasada when it's offered. Stand when something sacred passes by. Defend a value in one small conversation. Each act plants a seed. And seeds don't care how long the soil's been barren. They just need planting.
That's actually hopeful.
It's meant to be. The weight of the message isn't to crush you. It's to wake you up. The fear's real, yes, but so is the opportunity.
You've definitely woken me up to a lot. And maybe next time I'm in one of those meetings and someone says something that crosses the line, I'll remember this, and I won't just sit there.
That's the start. And once you've taken that first stand, you'll find the rest of these principles start feeling a lot less ancient and a lot more alive.
And that's it. You've just heard how ancient devotional principles aren't dusty rituals. They're living tools for courage, clarity, and identity. Remember how at the start we asked why we'll defend our work but stay silent when something far greater is mocked? Now you know, silence isn't neutral, and small, deliberate acts can transform who you become. You've got the insight, now it's your turn to act. First, think of one friend who came to mind while you listened, the one who struggles with speaking up or feels disconnected from what matters. Share this with them, not as content, but as a lifeline. Second, the comment section here isn't just a box under the video. It's a record of our shared human experiences. Add your story, your moment of courage, or the principle you're going to try. Third, hit like, not for us, but as your personal signal that you're ready to stop standing by and start standing up. And finally, subscribe. Not for random videos, but to join a growing community that refuses to treat the sacred as disposable. We're building this together, and your presence matters here. This is where the shift begins, and it starts with you.
Explore more reflections on love, surrender, and the divine. Watch the next video or subscribe for deeper journeys.
Love is not the end. It's the way.